although it doesn't look like it, when we get on to look at the work, I've always thought of myself in terms of conceptual art. It's never been about expression. It's never been about sort of me or a kind of idea of self or ego or angst. I've always been opposed, not just not done it. I've actually been opposed to that as a way. I often think people say, well, it's therapeutic to make art. I think, well, if you need therapy, you should just get therapy, because that's what therapy's for. Art's not for therapy. It's kind of an intellectual thing. So yeah, I mean, sort of the work I see it as part of a conceptual project, a post-conceptual art project, I suppose, would be the way I think of my own practice. For the whole of 2013, I did a project which ended up being called 365 Drawings, and I did a drawing for every single day of the year. I'll come clean, I didn't do a drawing every day of the year. If I had a busy week, I would sit down on a Sunday and do 3 or 4. I never got behind, and every day I uploaded that day's to a blog. So if I'd done 4 on a day, I would time them to go uploading. So if you're following the blog, you'd get a new drawing every day. All of the drawings are made from similar subject matter. They're all made in the same way, they're all the same size, they're all made in pencil. The subject matter is corners and overlooked bits of galleries and museums. I'd taken photographs of this for years. So it's things like hinges, light switches, floorboards, stools, shadows of sculptures but not the sculpture, skirting boards, steps, doorways, all sorts. But none of it's the art. It's all peripheral. I just had a lot of photographs of that anyway, and I thought it'd be really interesting to render them as drawings rather than exhibit them as photographs, which has been my kind of idea, to collect them as photographs. What I did was I prepared the drawings in the photographs in Photoshop by just cropping them, making them monochrome, putting a grid on, making it really simple. And I would do a batch and I would print out a load of them at once, and they would sit in a pile, and it was like having an in tray. And I would just sit down on an evening, I need to do a drawing, what am I going to do? Flip through the ones I printed, and if I had a whole evening, I would pick out a complicated one. If it was 10 o'clock and I hadn't got much time, I'd do a more simple one. It was really pragmatic, and they were all done at home, apart from 1 or 2 that were done in a hotel because I was away. And I just did them, and I did most of them in one session. I didn't abandon any. I just did them. They just got made. And as I was making them, I was uploading them, so they became, through social media, so they became disseminated first of all as digital images, which is kind of interesting because they're a set of drawings. What I found interesting as I was making them, it became very clear within, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks, beginning of February, that this was actually going to be an interesting piece of work. It was a single piece of work made up of lots of bits. So and then the pressure was on. No, you got to finish it. There's no point in just doing January, February, March and then stopping, because you don't have anything then. That doesn't add up to one. I had to get to December 31st to add up to one thing. And this was scuppered quite early, not because I couldn't do them, but because someone wanted to buy one. So I wanted to buy one of the January or February drawings, and I quite liked the idea of selling the work. I'd never really sold much work before. So I came up with an idea that he would buy it and then send me a photograph of the drawing after it was framed and mounted, or just leaning on a mantelpiece, or whatever he wanted to do. He sends me a photograph. I would then redraw that photograph. And this became something that carried on throughout the year. And I did this, and for some of the drawings I ended up doing 3 or 4 based on a single drawing. So I'd do the drawing, sell it, get a photograph, I'd make a drawing of that, then they'd buy the second photograph, and then I'd have to do a third one, and then they'd buy that. Which became very interesting because I actually lost control over some of the subject matter, because it becomes about what they decide to put in front of, their wallpaper, their books, I even had somebody put my drawing next to a postcard I'd designed, so I actually had to redraw one of my postcards as part of the process. So it came as a little bit out of my control, which was really interesting. But they're still very much my drawings. And hopefully it will. I've got two to do that I'm waiting for images for, and I will get back up to 365, and then I can show them again. And then it all carries on. None of the drawings have a meaning as such. However, I think the project. I'm never really interested in what art means. Actually, I'm more interested in what it does. And I think what this does is acts as a way of, it helps me think. It's helped me realise things about ability, craft, technical ability, but also about labour and work, about application, about, there's that line that Picasso said about, I believe in inspiration, but it has to find you working. You turn up, you put the hours in and something happens. You don't what? If you wait around waiting for some inspiration, you will be waiting around a lot of time. You might as well be doing something. So this has taught me that, you get on with it and you can actually generate a lot of work if you just do a bit of work each day. That's not new knowledge, but it's still nice to find it. The drawings are basically quite formal. I have a particular aesthetic, I suppose. They're black and white for a start. There's a lot of abstracting through close-ups or through, you can sort of make out what everything is in them, but often they look abstract at first glance. They're about my ability to get bigger, get better at the work. They're about the receding images, the drawings becomes an interesting. That's where it turns from being just an ability, just a program to improve my drawing, and to produce an exhibition, if you like, to being something that's more has more clout somehow. There's a term in translation theory called domestication, which is when a language is translated, is interpreted when it's translated. So a French phrase is translated into English, and the French phrase bonjour tout le monde, for instance, is translated. Now a literal translation is that is good day all the world. Well, that doesn't really make any sense, but that's what it literally means. Whereas a translator would probably translate it as hello everybody, but that makes it sound English. And you lose the Frenchness of it, the exotic quality is gone, so it becomes domesticated, it tames the foreign language. Well, these drawings are kind of my language, if you like, when they're made, but then they go to someone's house, they become literally domesticated, and then I have to redraw them. So the bit of the drawing that was my drawing, I'm redrawing my drawing, but I'm also then drawing their mantelpiece or their wallpaper or their desk or whatever. So there's this tension between the quote within the quote kind of thing. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody looking at these works will get that from them, and there's no reason why they should. I don't think the work speaks for itself necessarily. I don't think these works particularly speak for themselves. But they weren't made for that. They were made as a way to help me understand some stuff, and I do because of that. So they're kind of effective, and the whole the stuff that attends to art, the circus that surrounds it, which artist statements, critical review, films made about artists talking about their work, all surrounds the work, and I think that's perfectly legitimate to sort of use that as a way of thinking about the work. These works stand alone, I suppose, but you can supplement them with all this supplemental material in the same way that, and again, with interesting in translation, translators use footnotes to alert you to things, prefaces to apologise for how badly they've translated things or how difficult it was, or they suddenly put something in brackets with an italic saying in French it's this, which is a pun on such and such, which you lose in translation, or to say that when you translate this into English you gain a meaning that actually the author didn't mean. So it's kind of warning. So I think that the talk and the surrounding material, or the material that surrounds art, be it essays or talks or opinions, is perfectly valid as a way of unpacking some of the, I don't like to use the word unpacking, but a way of thinking about the work, even if the work appears just to be complete and static. I don't know if that answers the question. I mean, I think it's a lie actually that a lot of conceptual artists say it's not about skill. You know, it's actually quite difficult to think clearly, and that's a good skill. Duchamp was a maker of an exquisite object. You know, he wrote on the back of a comb. You can't do that. That's not normal. He made the Boîte en Valise practically. I mean, he commissioned bits of it, but he assembled it by hand. And he's the lead. You know, he's the kind of the grandfather of conceptual art, if you like. So I think there is quite a lot of skill in conceptual art. It's just not traditional art skill. When I make a drawing, it's actually can be quite tricky. It's hard. I mean, not physically hard, but it's some of them have been. But it was that when you make a drawing, you know, the paper catches the lead or it snaps, or you know, you want to get rid of that mark and you can't quite. So you have to negotiate. It becomes a site of an encounter between the thing being made and me, and you get better at engaging with it. And when you get better at it, you manage to make better things, and they seem more clear. You know, you don't get hung up on the fact that things are badly made. I see so much artwork which is badly made, and you think it's the point that it's badly made, and they're going, no, it's just not important how well it's made. Well, the problem is then that it's kind of the incompetence that is embedded in its making is often an obstacle to actually reading the thing. And I'm not saying that there isn't it's not hard and fast, and there, you know, if you look at Thomas Hirschhorn's work, there's something that's kind of crude about his work, but it's all put together really well, and people mistake that kind of crudeness with a kind of a lack of ability. I don't think that's quite as simple as that. So the craft thing became interesting, and that related back as well, because I'm interested in translation, in applying translation theory to the act of redrawing, or the act of drawing photographs. And of course, translation is a craft rather than an art. I mean, there is an art of translation, I suppose, but it's certainly not about expression. It's not about it's about giving a fair account of something else rather than a fair account of yourself, which is interesting from my point of view, because that's what I'm interested in. It's not that I don't have a self or an opinion, but I think as artists, that's overdone quite a lot. And so reading about craft helped me tie drawing to translation in a funny sort of way by going back a step. And also the nice thing about when you read and write about technical ability in craft is you don't talk about the meaning. There's no meaning to a bowl. If you can hold oranges, it works. You know, it's what does it do? It's a jug. That's important. That's its function, is to hold water. So if it holds water and pours it, it's a jug. It's an effective jug. You don't get caught up in what the maker meant, or what, you know, which is all kind of muddies the water when you talk about art. So it's kind of refreshing to talk about craft.